Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shatter Our Souls with Novaria. Now, last time we booted this up, I had a little bit of a self-monologue about how things went. Today, however, we are tackling the Agon Wastes, or at least in part. Um, so first things first, a little bit of an introduction. Last time we took down the majority of the temple grounds area, explored a little bit as to what happened within the world prior to Samus's engagement with this particular section of the world, and made it all the way to Agon Wastes, where I immediately saved because time constraints. No big deal. So, welcome to Agon Wastes. Now, it is stated in some of the logbook lore that the Agon Wastes used to be a verdant paradise. Now, I'm assuming that this is referring to something akin to more of like Scotland area. Green fields, rolling hills, that kind of stuff. A celebration of nature, if you will. However, after the advent of the meteor and its effects, the Agon Wastes have fallen into disrepair and disorganization. It's hit by a plague, it's sickly, it is no longer up to the standards that it once was. The sandy dunes are a hollow representation of what this world area used to be. It's also heavily industrialized and ruined, much the same to the Chozo ruins of the previous game. And the Space Pirate. Now, Space Pirates in this are a little bit closer actually to their original looks in the original Metroid, or in Super, depending on how you look at it. I would see this as more of a reimagining of them. That being said, they are what I'll call a minor antagonist within the Metroid Prime 2 campaign or storyline. Because in Prime 1, they were the primary reason behind Samus's movement and forward progress. In Prime 2, they exist, but they're more of a nuisance than the actual threat of the game. Forgive me, I'm a little lost at times. For all the praise I give this franchise, Prime 2 is the one that I know the least about. Simply due to it being... I always have a hard time separating the light and dark areas of the world. And sure, it would be kind of simplistic to simply say, oh yeah, the light area is this, the dark area is that. But unfortunately, due to the similarity between the pair, I struggle to tell them apart half the time. It is an unfortunate side effect of everything else going on in my world right now. I don't have the morph ball bombs, do I? I do not. I can't jump. Okay, we're going backwards and seeing what we can get into. So a little bit of trivia. Agon is a Greek word or Greek root word that would stand for a challenge or a battle arena of sorts. Thus, it would stand to reason that this area would be more of a gladiatorial combat sense. It's meant to showcase more of a, shall we say, a combative light to the Luminoth world as a whole, in that the Luminoth are not as peaceful as they may seem, at least at first glance. That being said, it's a very small detail that if you didn't understand or didn't know that portion of the lore and the world building as a whole, it really wouldn't be that hard to sum it up or discover it, simply due to the way that this area is built. Now, another aspect that I love about this is that At this moment, we're effectively walking into the gladiatorial arena. And it shows that it's a fenced-in area. It is completely blockaded. Two go in, only one comes out. Now, I like this aspect about it. I think it makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, making sense or not doesn't really matter. It's time for the next main boss. Now, the main boss of this area or of this portion, is the Bomb Guardian, which for whatever reason always reminds me of Moldorm from Legend of Zelda. But really, it's a simplistic boss. You hit one end of it to stun it, you hit the other end to deal damage. If you don't do enough damage in the span of time that you have, it spits bombs left, right, and center as an attempt to try to deal damage to you. Fairly simplistic boss, not exactly the most involved, but also we're not worried about how involved the boss is. We're worried about, can we beat it? And the answer is likely yes. This boss is very simplistic in design. The next boss that I feel like I should be worried about is Amorbis. Now, Amorbis is what I will call the region boss of the Agon Wastes. The Bomb Guardian here, he is a boss, but more of a sub-boss, location boss. But the area boss is, well, there are four actually. Agon Wastes has Amorbis. The Dark World version of the Torvus Bog has Chica. Chika? Yeah. And the third is the Quadraxis mech of the Sanctuary Fortress. These are the three bosses that hold off holds enemies out of the light temples in the Dark World. And I like this aspect about it. It shows a level of intelligence that we are not shown elsewise regarding the Ing. They are an angry, feral, warmongering race. This is all accurate. But the Ing have enough sense and wherewithal to them to protect the light of their world, or the energy controller of their world, because they know what happens when the energy controller runs out. Now, I think an often underrepresented aspect of the Metroid Prime 2 storyline and world is that, theoretically, the light of Aether is strong enough to hold and maintain both worlds indefinitely. However, this runs into problems as soon as one or the other tries to take power back. Now, knowing this, it's actually a often underrepresented or often forgotten aspect that the energy transfer module that Samus gains access to after the Dark Alpha Splinter battle was Luminoth in origin. It's not something that the Ing could have come up with. Yes, they were fighting an uphill battle, they were fighting a war, but the Ing would not have been able to make that. It is stolen tech because that's what they needed. It just so happened to work in the favor of the Ing prior to it working in the favor of the Luminoth. Samus, being the oddball who currently has it, means she is the single sole soldier left on the battlefield that can fight against the Ing with any representative of strength at all. And we now have the Morph Ball bombs. That took a little bit longer than I was expecting. Not the end of the world, though. So, with the Morph Ball bombs in hand, a few tasks come to light. The first is getting the means of interpreting orange holograms. How there is no connectivity between the purple ones, the orange ones, green ones, and so on and so forth, I don't know. But it would be very nice to have that capability, because I believe that it would add a little bit more to the world building, in my opinion, instead of taking it away or hiding it from you. That's the regional energy controller. That's the stand that I slammed the gun into to give the energy to it. Oh, there it is. Hologram projector online. This is one of the ancient or lost Luminoth sages. Aisha, the sentinel of the Agon Temple, has a message that survives his death. The portal to Dark Aether lies nearby. I can travel to the land's shadow using said technology, but I must locate the temple, a twisted mockery of their place, and inside, gain control of the energy of the light of Aether. The door is held by 3 locks. The locks are within the dark world. The search is difficult at the very least, as the very air is dangerous to Samus. But light crystals have been placed throughout the dark world in order to protect the Luminoth from the hostile environment. I have a love-hate relationship with the crystals. And I feel like it needs to be explained early rather than late. The dark world of Aether is considered more dangerous than the light world. 100%. The enemies are more aggressive. The world itself is toxic to Samus. She loses 5 health per second in the dark world. That's a lot in a very short span of time. However, what Samus loses, also she gains, at least for a portion of the areas. She gains the ability to use various weapons. No, that's not how I want to say it. She gains the ability to use Aether's energy, the light crystals, in the dark world, which act as not only a safe haven, but a healing spring that allows Samus to heal 1 HP per second, which, I'll admit, is not a lot. But knowing that she has that capability, I will be taking advantage of it on numerous occasions as need be. The goal being, of course, to survive. That's what the goal always is. I can't save a planet if I'm one of the victims. I can, however, fight with everything I've got. Using the technology that is left, I can heal up fully by standing in one place for a minute and a half, because that's what happens to work. Do I like that this is how it works? No. Will I still take advantage of it anyways? Absolutely. Because this is Hypermode. It does not pull any punches, and neither should I. Anywho, we're going to head to the Dark World here shortly, and take a little bit of a loop around, see what kind of monsters I can battle, and hopefully see a little bit of forward progress before heading into what is likely to be the den of the space pirates. So, I find it kind of interesting. It's a very small detail that gets thrown in, but the space pirates, prior to Samus's getting involved in the battle, are actually in contact with Dark Samus. Wow. And so, Dark Samus is seen as an evil entity, and is likely the one pulling the strings for the pirates behind the scenes. But Dark Samus is also far more invested in this world than the pirates are. You meet the pirates on numerous occasions, you battle them throughout the world. They take the place of the Chozo ghosts. They act as a nuisance throughout the game. And yet, it feels, from an outsider perspective, oh no, oh thank God. From an outsider perspective, I'm dealing with an enemy that is strong-willed and smart enough to get the Aang and the space pirates working together in some capacity. But Dark Samus doesn't want really anything to do with this world. All Dark Samus wants is A, a means of survival, and B, a means of gaining strength beyond the immediate. Now, looking at Dark Samus' actions leading up to the first battle, they're relatively simplistic. You meet her the first time in the introduction of the game, prior to meeting the Luminoth, where Dark Samus attacks using a couple minor abilities that mirror Samus, or echo Samus. It is effectively the personification of a what if. Dark Samus acts as Samus's foil in this game, being everything that Samus wouldn't be. Samus wants to provide, she wants to protect. This is a common theme within the franchise, as often her loving or caring nature comes out at potentially inopportune times, like with the baby Metroid on SR388, as well as dealing with problems on ZDR for an excessively low cost, a low bounty, because she knows she's the only one who can actually handle said threat. These things crop up for Samus numerous times throughout the franchise. Dark Samus feels no such empathy. What Dark Samus feels is only lust for control, for power. And so, Dark Samus seeks out pools of liquid phazon to try and strengthen itself over time. And while it is never explicitly stated, I believe that Dark Samus has memories reaching as far back as Talon 4, when the Metroid Prime was destroyed by Samus. Now, if this is the case, a lot of Dark Samus's abilities, no, not abilities, actions in the early segments of the game are shown to be very valid. Samus was the one and only being capable of actually defeating the Metroid Prime in its original state. Samus showing up randomly and fighting on the side of the Luminoth initially scared Dark Samus. And so Dark Samus did what really any scared entity would do, and got an army to fight for her. This is how Samus loses most of her items in the early game MacGuffin that explains why Samus doesn't have as much power as she did months, years prior. This is all fair, well and good. The flip side of it is, however, that when Samus battles the Metroid Prime Dark Samus a second time, or for the first time on Aether, Dark Samus doesn't really seem the most confrontational. Dark Samus seems to be testing the water, afraid of what might happen should all-out conflict happen. And I think this is an important distinction to make, especially given the circumstances of the game as a whole up to that point. Dark Samus does not want to get in a bad situation, does not want to be harmed. This is a creature that is nigh indestructible, that loses to Samus minimum of 5 separate times throughout the franchise. And truthfully, that says a lot, because there are very few beings in any franchise that can battle the hero, the main entity, once, let alone 5 separate battlefields. Is this a little bit nitpicky? Absolutely. But it speaks to a level of strength that Dark Samus holds that I believe shows just how devastating a threat that Samus faces on Dark Aether. Anywho, that's my little bit of a ramble about Dark Samus because we are in the Dark Agon Wastes. Now, the Dark Agon Wastes have all of the energy of the Agon Wastes housed in a central location. The weather is nice. It's absolutely beautiful. The sun, I think, is it the sun? Is shining. The Ing are fighting for their territory because that's what Ing do. Life is all good, well and good. Here, the cavernous nature actually lends itself well to a defensible position for the Ing. Given that they have 2 forms, you have, well, 4 that I can think of. The Keybearer form, the Ing Hunter form, the Ing Puddle form, which admittedly is kind of a bit of a cop-out, but it's the best wording I have for it, the Ing Puddle. But there's also other forms like the Stitcher form, as I'll call it, because I can't recall what it's actually called right now. But it's the floaty guy that like tries to stab you with its legs constantly. Knowing that each of the forms of the Ing have their own unique roles and abilities means that theoretically they have the upper hand on Dark Aether by an exponential amount. If they need to retreat, they could literally leak through a crack in the wall. They aren't going to, but they could. So I think that really shows a lot of concern or danger going into this particular mission. Now, one thing that I find that gives a lot of context to this world is actually in the architecture itself. In this room here, you have a statue of Amorbis, both in the light and dark world, suggesting that it is something that exists, or did at one time exist, on the light world, and acted as a guardian of sorts. But also that statue acts as a warning. Those who venture too deep into this realm may be attacked by what is considered a, not a stalking predator. It's a ambush predator. This creature will jump out of the ground, eat you like the sandworms from Dune, and boom, you're done. You don't have a chance after that point. So this acts as it acts as a warning, but also adds context for the later battle against Amorbis in the main area boss fight of Dark Aether's Agon Wastes. There's a lot of times that this ties together. The Chica is the only one that I can't find any outstanding prior understanding for this, but I think that's pretty small considering the amount of foreshadowing they did with Quadraxis, the amount of foreshadowing they did with Emperor Ing. They all tie back together to the world as a whole. But be that as it may, meet the next boss. Admittedly, this boss is a little underwhelming, but This guy is the Jump Guard and houses the bits and pieces of Samus's uh, space jump boots. Both it uses it for shock absorption, heightened uh, jump capabilities. It also uses it for what is arguably one of its special move, the shockwave. Effectively, by absorbing the entire impact of the landing in and of itself, it sends the shockwave outwards instead of going into the boots themselves. At least that's my interpretation of it. Which is to say, it's strong and this might be a little bit of a drawn-out battle because I don't really have a whole lot of power to fight this thing. I don't have the light beam yet, nor do I have the dark beam. And I certainly don't have the Annihilator beam or super missiles, meaning I'm kind of stuck. Now, I've been doing a little bit of digging, and I'm going to admit something here. Prior, I stated that Metroid Prime 2's Samus was, in my opinion, weaker than Metroid Prime's. And I've kind of come to revise that mentality. I believe that Metroid Prime and Prime 2's Samuses are on par with one another. This isn't to say that I think that one is greater than the other, in fact, quite the opposite. I am stating that the breadth and capabilities of each version of the same character are similar enough that it is hard to put one over the other. But this also comes with a little bit of a caveat. See, I love when video games have a storyline to them. And I enjoy the idea of power scaling because ever since, basically the dawn of storytelling, there has been this mentality of who would be stronger than who. And honestly, I can't blame them. It's fun to come up with these theories and ideologies. Samus in Metroid Prime, I had initially stated to be strong enough to deal with any local threat, but not strong enough to deal with a planetary threat. Now, what's the difference? Samus in Prime 1 is able to defeat any individual creature on Planet Talon 4, any individual creature on Aether. This is accurate. But she lacks the power on her own to destroy or to cause massive structural damage like would be expected from an anime character. And truth be told, I think anime power scaling gets way out of hand way too quickly. But the same thing happens within the Metroid Prime universe. Now, a lot of people that I've been watching and checking in on to see how strong Samus would be in Metroid Prime Trilogy, I often come to a very similar, albeit perplexing, final conclusion. And that is that Samus is destructive in Prime 1, but Prime 2, she's all of a sudden a multiversal threat, as if the actions and end of the game somehow destroy the multiverse and whatnot. Which, granted, she does destroy a parallel world, Dark Aether. But it is not her doing. Her actions were defeating Emperor Ing and Dark Samus, the creatures guarding the Dark World. But she, at no point in time, actively gets involved to the point where the world as a whole was destroyed by her hand. It was destroyed by the hands, or it was destroyed because the light of Aether, the energy of the world, was removed. It's not something that Samus herself physically could destroy. I feel the need to make this distinction. Because yes, technically her actions cause it. But her actions are not she does not directly cause said damage. It is a byproduct of another action she took. And I feel like in a lot of anime and video game power scaling mentalities, this is something that gets overlooked. Samus herself does not destroy the impact crater. The meltdown of energy caused by defeating the Metroid Prime destroys the impact crater in Prime. Samus does not directly destroy planet Zebes. The reaction caused by the hyper beam and the destruction of Mother Brain is what destroys planet Zebes, and so on and so forth. Samus is powerful. She is a very devastating threat, but she is not a planetary threat, and she would not intentionally cause harm in the way that a lot of people seem to think that she would. Which is to say, oh wait, I'm running a little bit low on health here. Okay. What am I doing? Really can't go very far right now, so I guess I just gotta go back. This is bad. This is very bad. Nope. Nope. I can't make it. And so we have the first instance of Nova's gotta stop and wait for a minute. Give it a sec here. Just like that, we are back up to decent health. Not perfect, but I'm tired of waiting. So tell me what your thoughts are. Do you think that I am coming at this mentality a little bit on the odd side? Or does this make some semblance of sense knowing what we do about the character as a whole? Leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear it. Anywho, next time, I think we're going to pay a visit to the next major section of this area. The Agon Wastes Phazon mining facility, manned primarily by our dear friends, the Space Pirates. Now, I'll be completely honest about this. I expect the next time is going to be a absolute unit of a mission. So I'm not expecting as much forward progress as I would like. But I would guesstimate that we will be in Torvus Bog within about 3 more videos. Just based on my experience with the game as a whole. If you like what you see, drop a like, and leave a subscribe. Be sure to hit the noti bell as, well, you won't find out about any upcoming videos or continuations to series without said noti bell. And we will catch you next time. Only problem I have with this game's version of Samus is that I don't know how much devastation each of her various weapons would have. Because, like, the light beam takes the place of the plasma beam. But, like, the damage done by the light beam is so much lower than that of the plasma beam, it's not even funny. Anywho, that's all